Hello and welcome to Fairbanks Year Round. I am joined by Lisa Slaba, who is the Military Project Manager for the Fairbanks Economic Development Corporation.
Man, I know it's a mouthful.
Woo! I was really worried I wouldn't get that. So also you are with the young professionals. What's your role there?
So I lead essentially the young.
You're a leader.
Yeah, the Young Professionals Council.
So that may have been a stupid question for me because I was just telling you that I don't really know what that is or what's being done there. So, but before we get into all that, like I said, we will start with you. So, how did you make it to Fairbanks? Were you born here? Moved here?
Definitely not born here. I came probably kicking and screaming more than anything. So my husband's active duty Air Force. So
Gotcha.
we came to be at Eielson
Yeah.
and let him continue working. And I was actually working from home full time when we got here. And the tech industry took a bunch of layoffs. And I was working, in the HR realm. And I was like, well, I don't want to get laid off. And it's easier to find a job when you have a job.
Yeah.
So I went looking and honestly networked my way into my role, which people find funny a little bit. And I'm like, networking is how 80% of people get a job.
Networking. So yeah, I'm reading a book right now. I always look at my wife because
It's okay. I get
if
it.
anybody ever wonders why I look off screen and kind of like make intense eye contact with somebody because we talk about these things. I'm like, hey, remember when we talked about that? So, but anyways, yeah, I am a firm believer. It is the most powerful thing for not just business and making money, especially with me selling any sales stuff. It's like basically who you know, but just like general happiness and being able to connect people who can help each other out. I don't know. I think it's such a huge benefit.
Well, I mean, ironically, that's how you and I met.
Yes.
Because
It's not ironically. It's very heavily planned on my side.
Well, yes, heavily planned on your side. But even then, I never would have known to reach out to you had someone in my network said, hey, Blake's looking for information about this and you do this. I'm going to connect you. Bam, look at this. Now we're having a whole conversation about it. And
so the networking,
together.
Did this come to you naturally? Did you have to work at this or are you
at networking?
Yes. Being connected to people.
I feel like that's a tough question because I am generally an extrovert. However, I also like my time alone. However, my husband, what is it called? Where you're evenly an introvert. Ambivert. So he is that.
Yeah.
And when I tell him that I'm an introvert, he laughs at me. And I'm like, but I need my time alone. I don't know what your deal is, And he's like, but Lisa, you like being around people. Yeah. He's like, you get energized from being around people. He's like, I, on the other hand, dread being around people 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah, this is interesting. I think we're pretty similar in that way. But yeah, I do need, I really like, I listen to podcasts and audiobooks and things, and those are my time, or just sitting in the car alone. I really do need that. But if I go to an event or someone's house even and just hanging out and we have
on just comes.
Yeah. And when you come home, and again, it's a difference between me and my wife. I'm pumped. I can't hardly go to bed. I was I want to stay there till midnight. And she's like, I think I need a nap. Or, it's I'm really tired. It's really exhausting. Even if she had fun, she's it's just really exhausted by the experience where I'm totally energized. But yeah, still there is certain scenarios where it is not the case. For me, mixers or business mixers or things like that are my nightmare, where you're just handing out business cards and things. Those I'm not a huge fan of personally.
I think it's
some
the
people
small
are really good.
talk.
Yeah, small talk sucks.
I want to have a conversation. I don't want to have to be, I don't always want to be well, what do you do? And tell me what that's about. I want to have a pointed conversation and let the other things come with it.
Well, and that's what this has become. And it's really helped me in the rest of my life. We were just going on a walk as a family. A guy comes walking by and talks about our kids or whatever. And I had a 15-minute conversation. He had heart surgery. He was working on his cardio and stuff. And it's really easy to stay surface level. But a lot of people want to talk about themselves. And I've noticed that with the not that I'm saying that
I know what you mean,
but a lot of people have a lot of things to say that they don't get to say. And so having this format is I'm here for you to talk, even though I'm doing a lot of talking right now, but I'm here for this. And it gets way deeper than if you and I met, we would talk about a lot of silly things. So I'm kind of cultivating just in my life where it's hey, what if this was a podcast episode? And I just ask a question that I'm genuinely interested in. There is this balance point for me where it's is this too too personal. And I just tell people, you can just tell me to be quiet, and then,
that's funny, right?
it's like,
right.
hey, if you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer that thing. But
well, and that's the thing too, is that so many things are surface level. So you having that walk, that person found a way to connect with you and said, oh, like they have kids and I love kids. And I remember how when my kids were young. And so I want to work on my cardio because I want to be able to play with my grandkids. So like it gets that deeper level. And that's where people end up feeling connected to where when it's like, oh, hi, my name's Lisa and I work at the Fairbanks Economic Development Corporation. What's your name? Like there's no... You obviously want to sound personal when you introduce yourself, but there's no like immediate connection. It's not like, oh, hey, I noticed you're wearing this blue sweater. I think it's great. By the way, I'm Lisa.
Yeah.
I've now changed it and added a personal connection and noticed something about you versus having a like, this is my intention and this is the only reason I'm going to talk to you.
So back to the original question.
I know.
So
did
this come naturally to you, or is this these things you've like cultivated and kind of grown as you've used it more?
I would say a little bit has come naturally, but then you also have to think working in a professional setting too, that there's a line. Like when am I transparent and forthcoming and personable, and when do I need to be professional the whole time? I think so. It's finding that balancing act, and I'm still working on that balancing act, to be totally honest. But you've really got to find your groove. And if people care about people, they're going to love that you're being transparent and you're being honest and forthcoming and paying attention rather than just the constant, well, I'm business only.
Yeah.
Well, you can't be business only all the time.
No. Yeah. I know the feeling. Because you go back and forth, like, let's say a client of mine and they have something bad happens in the deal. If I was a friend, I could be like, oh man, that sucks. I feel, but as a professional and someone that's representing them, I know I don't need to feed into that.
Right.
I need to be like, hey, these things happen, be understanding.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is, like you're saying, that balance point where you don't want to like fan the flame maybe in that particular case. But there's other times where it's like, we're showing houses and we're looking at stuff or walking around. It's like, hey, how's your day going? It's like, we don't have to just talk about the house. I started by doing that when I first got into real estate and it was like really quiet because houses, they have things to talk about, but if you're in there for 30 minutes, it's hard to talk about a house for 30 minutes.
Well, and it really is. And then even thinking of you as a realtor, if you can get those people talking about, hey, how's your day going? And this, they're going to share a ton of stuff with you. And you're going to be like, maybe this isn't the house for you.
Yes.
Let's go look at this one because based on what I'm hearing you tell me, this one I think would be a better fit because they've given you details you hadn't gotten prior to standing in a house that you're showing them.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, so listening to people is a big thing. And I guess to bring it all the way around too is the Young Professionals Council, they want to be heard, so I'll be 34 this summer. So right? Like kids and all. And so I even find myself having a hard time connecting with some of the other young professionals because one, I'm not from Fairbanks. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old at home and I live 30 minutes from town. Yeah. So you're like, oh, let's go have a beer. And I'm like, ooh, I haven't seen my kids since 7 a.m.
Yeah.
And so that can be hard. So I'm like, how can I connect with these people? And so it's finding ways. So that's part of the Young Professionals Council is getting those people together to connect for one, 2, showing them the fine line between personal, professional, and how to integrate those. And then saying there's other people who want to do it. Like, let's get you together and let you all figure out the fine line.
Yeah, for sure. So when did you come up here? How long have you been here?
So it'll be 3 years this October.
So are you shipping out soon?
No.
Oh, okay.
So I've been getting that question a lot and I'm like, we decided to stay, right? Yeah. And I say it a little begrudgingly, because Fairbanks is a great town. It's got a community that you wouldn't necessarily get in other communities that are this size in the lower 48. At the same time, I kind of miss some certain shopping opportunities.
Shopping? Who cares about that?
Right?
No. Yeah.
I kind of miss me some Chick-fil-A and some Texas Roadhouse and...
Yeah, just the seclusion of being here.
Yeah. I grew up in the Midwest and the next, the big city was 30 minutes away.
Right. That's how... Well, we lived in Arkansas.
Okay.
And it was everywhere. You could be in a state in about an hour and a half, a different state.
Right.
And it was almost any direction you headed. You were going to hit another state. City after city. I remember we went down to Texas for a trip just last year. And even driving down the interstate, it was so weird because even though there was like nothing, there was always house lights. Like there's always something.
Oh, yeah.
Even in like the secluded parts of a big state like Texas. And it was a little unsettling because I've gotten so used to Alaska now.
Right.
I was like, I like when you're driving between here and Anchorage, that there's just absolutely nothing, which is
It's
unsettling
just kind of
in a different
refreshing.
way. Yeah, that's cool.
But it is unsettling because you're like, where are all the people?
Where are all the people? If something happens.
Exactly. But if you're driving through Texas, you're like, oh, there were 10 people behind me. I'm just driving faster than they are.
Well, I'm glad you're sticking around for sure. It's a cool place. And we've said this 100 times. It's like, you hate it, you love it. There's like so much to love. There's obviously so many things that are outside of what most people would consider normal, like in the lower 48. And a lot of people don't get around that, which is like A-okay. Because this is the town that it is. And we're making it what we want it to be basically as a community. Right. But you don't have to love it, just like anything. Some people don't like Chick-fil-A. They're crazy. But
right?
Yeah. It's the greatest. They could serve dirt at this point to
sponsored.
Me. Yeah, I know. I love how fast they are. That's my biggest thing. It's like you could have trash food, even I'd still come just because I got it fast. No, but they have good food too. So, all right, cool. Great. So you're sticking around.
Yep.
And so you got with the Fairbanks Economic Development. Was that your first
That's
role?
my first gig here in Fairbanks.
So let's start there. And I do want to talk about the young professionals. So what is that? It seems to describe itself.
So the Fairbanks Economic Development Corporation, we want to bring opportunities for residents, businesses, business owners, all of the driving factors that make Fairbanks Fairbanks. So, mining, we're invested in that. You want to talk military, we're invested in the military. You want to talk agriculture, small business, forestry, the university, all those things. Like we play in all of those little ponds.
So are you mostly behind the scenes, or if somebody has like a business or things like that, should they come to the development? I don't know if it's like, like the Chamber of Commerce is kind of something like that where you would come and like connect or more. Is that something you would do here? Or is
we want to connect. We want to connect you to resources, essentially. So, funny enough, small business, SBDC, I can't ever remember what it actually stands for, but they have an office here in Fairbanks. Mm-hmm. They moved below us. Yeah. So we've had people come up to us and they're like, oh, I think I'm in the wrong place. And we're like, well, what are you looking for? Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, I'm looking for the SBDC office. And we're like, oh, well, we'll take you down there. Mm-hmm. And then, because one, they're down there, but then two, it also gives them an insight into who we are, what we do. And we're able to say, hey, I can introduce you to the person who runs that office. And so it shows that we know people and we know how to connect you to those things. Mm-hmm. We also want to spotlight businesses, small businesses. I don't know if you've heard of Fairbanks First, like the Orange Moose and the Moose on the Loose and little scavenger hunt through town. Typically, so before I started, it was generally Small Business Saturday that they ran it. Well, now with the Winter Solstice Festival, we've incorporated it into that, and so it's more closer to Christmas. And Fairbanks First is all about small businesses across Fairbanks. So you have a small business, we want to spotlight you. Yeah. Give us a call, email us, whatever that looks like, and we want to spotlight all the great local businesses in the community. But in doing that, it helps keep the money in Fairbanks. It's not having. I love Amazon, so. But it's also being able to say, oh, there's this neat craft that I can buy here, or there's this neat niche thing I can't find anywhere else. Yeah. But then if I don't know where to find it because I don't know that a business has it, well, then I'm going to fall back to Amazon because I'm like, well, Amazon has this. Yeah. But then if you say, hey, I've got this small business and we do this, well, then cool. I now know where to go, so I don't have to order it online next time. I can go find it in that shop in town. Absolutely. Because, well, I want instant gratification. And if I don't have to wait a week and I can go to town and buy it and have it, perfect. Yeah. I really think Amazon, people who like to shop use it, but people who don't like to shop use it a lot too. Like myself, I hate shopping.
And so the idea of like going around town and trying to find something is a real nightmare to me. So being able to search in a search bar, especially for something very specific or something that is usually my use case, where I was like, I do just not want to just like drive around and
I don't want to go to like 10 shops.
Yeah. However, we just had, which will be coming out as we record this, it's coming out right now. The roaming route.
Their new location.
Yeah,
so
we had
we're
Erica on, but
that.
and it was like, I love the roaming route, and I want to like spend money there, and those items that she has, like I would much rather support that, obviously, which is local. So yeah, but a lot of it is not knowing, because I had never been to the roaming route like until like last week, and I came in, I was like, oh, this place is awesome,
right?
You know, and I live here, and this is something that's very normal for me. I just obviously stay at home all day or something because I'm missing a lot of stuff, but there's like so much stuff going on and like shops and things that I've just never been to. And, but yeah, and that's, again, a big part of this too, is bringing that connection, letting people know about these businesses. And anyways, I'm with it. I'm jiggy with it.
I mean, cause you don't know what you don't know till you know it. So if I don't know that your small business exists, how am I supposed to utilize it?
Right.
Because I don't know that it's there.
Yeah.
You know, I'm either not being the targeted audience or, you know, whatever the case is. You know, so that's a big thing too. And
so would you recommend any small business in the area reach out to you guys just to see what could be done? Okay.
100%. I mean, it's free advertising.
Yeah.
You know, I think we have over 3,000 page likes on Facebook. So it's going out to a great audience. We always get great responses when those posts go out. It's every Friday. So it's like people know and expect, and they're like, oh, Fairbanks First Friday Small Business Spotlight. It's up. And
you should spotlight this podcast when this comes out.
Right?
Yeah. We can always use, hey, everybody.
Right.
Sweet. So moving into your role there specifically, the military project manager.
Oh my gosh, that is a huge role. So military touches a little bit of everything. So when you're talking energy, you can talk military. When you're talking economic development and bringing businesses, you can talk military. When you're talking about the impact or whatever it is, military can touch it all, you know? And so I feel like I sit in a lot of meetings, which is fine. I also get to lead meetings and be a part of some big conversations that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do not having this position.
Right.
You know, and for me as a military spouse, it's helped me a lot because then I can further share resources that I didn't know existed. Again, I didn't know what I didn't know till I knew it.
Right.
And so I have found resources that I was like, oh my gosh, this would have helped me 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, now I need to share it.
Yeah. No, I know the feeling where people are like struggling with something that you've been struggling with, even if it's knowledge or just a program or something where it's like, well, darn it, this would have been nice to know. Yeah. But then every time you get to tell somebody else about it, you know, you're making that whatever little or big difference that it could be. So when you're doing, so the project side of that title, are you putting together like some of these programs? Are you, again, are you more of a connection point?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
So last year, we hosted the 2023 Alaska Defense Forum. It was the third one. So the first one was in 2019 before COVID, then COVID. And then the second one was in 2021. And then I don't know about 2022 or if it was just because it was like on that like every other year and all the things. So 2023, they said, hey, we're doing this. And I said, okay, cool. What do I need to do? And we got 250 people to attend, which was great. It sold out based on what we had available and all of that. And we had people from, I think, 15 states in attendance.
Wow.
And then 2 countries, U.S. and Canada, participated. So that was perfect.
That hardly counts. I mean, I know you want to...
I know.
Not joking.
Sorry, Canada friends. So it was great. We had a great turnout. And the biggest thing is talking about partnerships. How can you work with other entities to broaden what you're trying to do? You know, there's a lot of organizations who are working in silos because they don't know that other people are working on the same thing, and there's power in numbers. If there's 5 of you working on I can't even think of a good thing at the moment. I don't know. Let's talk trash. If you've got organizations talking about trash collection, okay, well, how can you come together and make that even bigger?
Right.
And make your reach bigger rather than you each trying to figure out how do we better trash collection in Fairbanks.
Right.
Like, okay, well, who are your stakeholders and who needs to be in that conversation and who needs to provide opinions and feedback? So that's where some of this came from. And so talking about public to private partnerships, public to public partnerships, and showing that anybody can be involved in the conversation. You just have to know that these are the offices and this is where you can find information so that you can make that impact that you're looking for.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I was, as you were saying that, I was trying to think who your target audience would be to say, like, what should they do with you guys? But it kind of is so broad, like
It
the
is,
economic,
yeah.
it's like anybody really in the area, I guess business owners, military people, like what would you tell them? Like, what was the best way that you could help them? Should they just, again, reach out to you guys? Should they?
Yeah, I would say
website?
reaching out would be probably the best thing because then we can figure out, okay, what are you looking for? You know, are you looking to get involved in a conversation regarding downtown? Are you wanting to get involved in the conversation about housing? Are you wanting to talk about utilities and energy? You know, then we can say, okay, let's go from the smaller subject and further connect that and go from there.
So on the other side, so somebody looking maybe to help themselves or whatever, what can the community do to help you guys? Like what, do you guys have like volunteer like things happening, or what would be something that would be helpful to, again, just grow the area
call
here?
Us.
Yeah.
Call us and say, hey, we're working on this. How can you guys partner? How can you help?
Yeah.
What does this look like in your realm?
Awesome.
You know, and really trying to be just further connective tissue. And because maybe you're calling because you want to make something better and you have this group of 5 contacts, but you know inherently that there's more people out there who want to work on that project.
Right.
You know, and figuring out like, who do you know that is interested in X, Y, and Z? And can we get us all together to talk about X, Y, and Z so that we're not staying in our vacuum,
right,
and talking in circles about the same thing.
Absolutely.
You know?
So getting spread out and making more of an impact. Yep. Sweet.
And you always want to have a core group though.
Right.
Like you want everyone's feedback and opinions, but you still need your 5 wranglers. Right. To hone it in.
Yep. To make something happen for sure. Well, cool. Well, let's move into, unless you had something else to say about that, I would love to switch over to the young professionals.
Yeah. I would say the last thing about the Alaska Defense Forum, we are planning our 2024 event and it is happening the last week of August here in Fairbanks. And anyone who wants can go visit the, alaskadefenseforum.com, and we're trying to keep things updated and going from there and working on getting our panels together. So if anyone has something innovation related across the state for that matter, email me. Sweet. I want to know about it.
All right. And we'll have all your information in the description. So perfect, for anybody there. So sweet. So young professionals, how did you get in with that? And then we'll kind of talk about it more.
So young professionals, I end up helping 2 different groups. So we'll go back to military for a second. The Military Spouse Professional Network is specific to military spouses. So I am the network lead for all of Alaska for the Military Spouse Professional Network. And it's, again, to connect people who are moving to this area, hopefully to connect them to jobs.
Okay.
Because, again, we can go back to networking. 80% of jobs are filled through networking. So if I'm networking in the community and you say, hey, I'm moving to Fairbanks or to Anchorage and I work in this field, cool. Let me see if I can go through my Rolodex, see how I can point you in a direction to find a job. Maybe I have a direct connection to a hiring manager, things like that. So it started there. Well, then it was like, hey, we have this specific group of young professionals specific to Fairbanks. What can we do? And they said, well, we already do a summit. And it's a half-day professional development summit. And it's usually done in April. So this year's is April 19th. Hey. It's a half day.
We're close.
Right? We're getting real close, like 19 days. Ooh, actually less than that.
Yeah.
Now that I put that in perspective, I'm like, oh, crap, that's coming up fast. As I'm like, I have more things to do. So it was determined by the young professionals that they only wanted it as a half day. Sometimes a full day can be a lot. I get it. It kind of stings to sit in a conference and take in a bunch of information. So we've kept it as a half day. So this is the 6th consecutive one, I believe. And it's geared towards 40 and under, like that. I'd say 18 is fine, essentially. But at the same time, probably more of like that college senior, because they're trying to get out of the workforce. They're trying to make those connections. And so I'd say generally 22 to 40 is like prime age group for the young professionals. And so we try to get them together monthly. I've been doing lunches for the last 6 months or so, just to get people like, get out of the office, come have lunch, come meet some other people. And so we average about 5 to 8 people for lunch generally. And we've been trying to just hit up local favorites. Yeah. So I think, what month are we in? We're in April now. February, we went to Salty's on 2nd.
Sweet.
We went to the bakery. We've gone to, now I'm like, where all have we gone? The Red Lantern in the Westmark.
Right.
Honestly, they have good food. If you haven't been there, it's great.
Yeah.
And you never think about it because it's in a hotel.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And what is it? And I say that I sat down with Jeff Welch. So he is one of our speakers for the Professional Development Summit. So he owns Jeff Welch Consulting, I believe is the name. And he's going to talk about leadership. And so we went and sat down, and on his list, what's the restaurant in Sophie's Station? Zach's?
I don't know.
Something.
Actually.
So I'm looking at trying to put time on his calendar, and he gives these lists of restaurants. And I'm like, what is this place? Like, I love food.
Yeah.
Because I've joked, I'm visiting my mom in Amarillo, Texas later this month. I'm like, Mom, I'm eating my way through Amarillo. So I see this restaurant I've never heard of on Jeff's calendar, to block time.
Right.
And I'm like, well, we're going there.
Yeah.
Well, then I tried to find it, and I couldn't find it.
Oh, okay.
It was telling me to go here. Like, the pin was just like in a building on my map. And I'm like, but none of these are doors that I can go in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was an interesting start to a conversation when I sat down with Jeff to talk about the Young Professionals Council. I got to eat at a new restaurant in town and tell him kind of what we're looking for, and really just have a conversation. And, what does leadership look like? And we're starting the day off actually with Carla. Man, I feel like I just butchered that. Her last name is Ostblum. So she owns Bloom Consulting.
Oh, okay.
She is great. So she is going to talk about cultural diversity. I feel like I need to look up her name now, because I'm like, I feel like I said the wrong name, and then I'm going to feel stupid.
Well, that's okay. No, that's fine. Yeah. So we're actually having Jeff on, I don't know when, I'll have to look at my calendar to know, but I'm excited about him. He seems like a real hoot. I've not.
Charlene.
Okay.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So bad with names.
No worries. So cool. So has the young professionals, so it's been like going on for like 6 years, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. And it just is a community of young professionals, obviously.
Right.
That
How
came
many
together.
times can we say that?
Right. that are coming together to network and to learn about leadership and stuff. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So like I said, so Charlene Ostblum, she is bringing the cultural aspect.
Okay.
So if you guys don't know, Fairbanks is very cultural.
Yeah.
And that's something that I feel like is not always taken into consideration.
True.
Like, what does that look like as a young professional looking for a new opportunity, and trying to get to learn, for one, and then two, how to incorporate yourself into that. Not as someone who wants to tear anything down, but someone who wants to learn and be open-minded and care for other people. Have understanding and empathy and all of that. So Charlene's going to bring the cultural conversation, and she's actually going to start our day.
Okay, cool.
And my hope is that her conversation leads, one is eye-opening, but then leads to more thought-provoking things as the day progresses. Because we're going to be talking how to get involved in your government, how to get involved in your community. We're going to be talking about personalities in the workplace. I twisted my husband's arm to come and talk. And then we will have, what was my other one? Sleep.
Oh,
we're
one of my favorite things.
Right. I also really like to recharge too.
Yeah.
And just have no one talking to me. So I end up losing a lot of sleep at that rate. But so we'll talk about sleep, and then Jeff will close the day out talking about leadership and kind of bringing all of that together and like how you use all of those things.
Sweet. So how would somebody get on the calendar or something for the lunches or this half-day summit? Yeah,
so I've been putting it out primarily via Facebook and Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So if you're not on LinkedIn, you should be. It's a great area to professionally network. I always say Facebook is my fun posts. and LinkedIn is my professional posts.
Right.
And sometimes they intermingle, but I really try to keep it very separate. And so I want to reach, some of those who are really trying to professionally network. I'm hoping to reach them on LinkedIn.
Right.
And then on Facebook, because it is a common platform, reaching people who are like, ooh, do I really want to play on LinkedIn?
Right.
I'll use Facebook. And then Instagram, well, it's pictures. So
yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. So really just trying to reach that demographic with the resources that I have. And there's a link. It'll take you to a job form and you can sign up and get registered. And it's, if your company is a sponsor of the event, then they come with, a certain number of seats available. But otherwise it's $50 per attendee, and you'll get a light breakfast and coffee. And then we'll have an actual networking lunch. Last year, we had a presentation during lunch, and we did sandwiches from Great Harvest. I don't know if you've ever unwrapped a Great Harvest sandwich.
Oh, yeah.
In the midst of someone talking. It's very loud.
Oh, yeah.
Or like opening bags of chips. And I was like, ooh, we're not doing that again next year.
Yeah, you learn something. Yeah.
I was like, so we are going to have a 30, I think it ends up being like 30 to 40 minutes for lunch. People can just chat and eat and be prepared and take notes or interact more without having to try and focus on food, listening, crinkles.
Right. So it sounds like it's mostly a place to network, but also learn about like how to improve yourself professionally, youngly.
Yep.
Again, how many times do we say it? But cool. So you got integrated with that, and it sounds like you're doing a lot of like fun stuff that you're very much. Really, the first thing you said is about that networking and the connection. And that's kind of your whole life, it sounds like now is
sometimes.
Yeah. I know you're doing projects and things like that, but they're all, sounds like ultimately like being the whatever connective tissue, the sinew, between big businesses and military or whatever it may be, and the people themselves. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you. And thank you for sticking around.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're here till 27, like fall of 27 is the plan now.
Yep.
But my husband's eligible to retire the following September.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what do we do?
Yeah. There's always a choice. We've just been talking about this. Not everybody. A lot of people in this area are always thinking if they should move. And it's a very strange thing. Like, and with military, it's pretty obvious. Like, hey, we know we usually have a date. We know when we're going to go. But even the people living here, they're like, we're thinking about moving. And they've been thinking about moving for years and years, and they'll probably think about moving for years, and maybe they will move. You know what I mean? But
I'm curious why.
I think it is, again, the strangeness of the area, but probably, and I'm just postulating, the seclusion. So the thought of...
It can be a lot.
Just like there's something out there that could fit us better, and you don't really get to taste test that very easily. So like we were talking about living in Arkansas, we could be in Dallas in 4 hours.
Right.
And we could experience, we did some vacations down there and realize like, oh, this is a nightmare. Traffic sucks.
Right.
But like here, it's like, you can go to Anchorage.
But it's going to take a day to get there.
It takes a day to get there. And Anchorage is not really a big city still. I mean, it's big for Alaska, know, but it's still and it's still cold. And so we could go from Arkansas, take a 2-day road trip if we wanted, or even a 1 day, and go somewhere that has like the 4 seasons or, so you can test these things out a lot more easily. Or Alaska, again, you can vacation, of course. It's a little bit harder. Again, this is just like my thoughts. But yeah, like a lot of my conversations with friends and stuff is, we're thinking about moving. You know what I mean? I don't know if you feel that or if you've noticed that at all.
I don't know. I guess it would depend because depending on the circle, I feel like they're like, well, I'm here. My job is here. I'm like well positioned. That like, what does that look like somewhere else?
Yes.
But then my brain is, I've already had to do it. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, but like... Right. I'll figure it out.
Moving, you mean?
Well, moving, finding a new job, getting connected. Again, I'm going to pull it all the way back around. Networking, you know? So if networking on LinkedIn connects you to people all over the country.
Right.
So if I'm like, oh man, hey, we're moving to North Carolina. I probably have someone on my LinkedIn connections that either lives in North Carolina, recently left, or somebody knows somebody that says, hey, actually, you're looking for a job in North Carolina? Let me connect you with so-and-so.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And so if you're already planning those things, because I'm not saying people should just be looking for a job constantly, but everyone's casually browsing.
I think everyone should be looking for a job constantly. So my opinion is, and with real estate is a little bit different. I always say it's like business ownership on easy mode, because like overhead for like a single real estate agent is like super low, and there's a lot of things but at the end of the day, if I don't do anything, I don't make any money. So there's no like hourly. So there is some of that going on. So it's a little bit different, but people just as an employee, there obviously in history was a lot of loyalty between employee and employer. And I think a lot of that's gone away, and you can see it as a negative thing, but it used to be like, hey, you work here your whole life, you're going to have a retirement, we're going to pay for your kids to go to college. Like a lot of that was happening. And now there is no promise that the employer is going to employ you for your whole career. But there's still a lot of people that feel like they should be loyal back to them. So it's like a one-way loyalty in a lot of cases.
It really is. And the average person is only staying at a job for maybe 2.5 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's less than I thought. So
it's not a long time, because people are finding out that they're not getting a raise or enough of a raise.
Right.
That if they leave to another job, leave that company and go to a new company, they will get a significant pay bump. And then they could come back to that company that they were at previously and get another significant pay bump that they should have gotten when they were there to begin with.
Well, it reminds me of insurance. When you have insurance for your car, house, whatever, it's the only business model that is negative for loyalty. So if you stick with an insurance company, they will slowly raise your rates. And
but
then
it's so slow, though, that it takes you a long time to realize sometimes.
Yeah, and then so it's like, oh, I need to switch. So you switch and you go somewhere else, and you're going to have a better rate. And you could even, like you're saying, in the reverse, you could switch back to your original company and get that better rate. But they're basing it off of the hassle of switching insurance, which is a hassle. And like, I don't want to do it every 6 months or something, or every year. So people do stick around for a long time. And there's various reasons besides cost, of course. Yeah, with work, my mom, a friend I have, they're always looking. My mom just switched jobs twice, which she's like, I don't love doing this, but just like the way opportunities were, like switched a company, 3 months later, switched another company. And between those two switches, she got herself a 50% raise.
Dang.
So so if you made $10 a year, you could make $15 a year in 6 months by, again, she's doing a very similar job. She's excited about it, whatever the reason is. But there's this not unnecessary loyalty, in my opinion. And a lot of employers are probably like, don't listen to this guy. But it's like, listen, if you can make your job so fantastic that nobody wants to leave, then hunky dory. But I think 99.9% of the time, businesses aren't really looking that way. The biggest expense is always going to be your payroll. And that's the way they're seeing it. Which I don't really agree with, because the business is nothing without the people, obviously.
100%.
Building, or even if there is a building these days. So always be looking, people. I know we went on a little bit of a tangent there.
No, but I agree though, 100%. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and they've been in the community for over 30 years. They moved here for military reasons with their active duty member. And they had mentioned that, at that point in time, people didn't want to hire a military spouse because they would leave. Well, you don't have long-term. Yeah. You're going to leave. And I shared with this person, I said, it's interesting that 30 years ago, that was the conversation. And in 2024, that conversation is still happening. Yeah. Even though the average, you're saying, is 2.5 years. The average civilian is 2.5 years. Yeah. And that's without maybe even moving a location. Yeah. That's living in that's, for example, staying in Fairbanks. Right. Yeah. No, I'm with it. So there is I guess the original point was there is a lot of transient thinking up here, which is fine. And again, I think I have a unique perspective when I'm selling people's houses. Yeah. Because I sold in Arkansas as well. Okay. I would sell somebody a house and I would not hear from them for years and years. Here, just as I was driving in today, I was kind of counting. I was like, within the past few years, there's been 5 people that I've sold their house within a year of selling it to them. And I'm like, it's interesting. Don't plan for that, people, by the way, because it's tough. It's hard on me. How do they get out of the black? How do they get out of the red? Or the red. How do they get into the black? How do they get into the black? That is why it's hard on me. So don't plan for that. Luckily, our market's been good the past 3-4 years. So we've been able to, do okay. But there's a lot of scenarios where I had one in particular. He calls, it's 2 months after he bought it. And some things changed his life, positive things, luckily. And I was like, listen, he was wanting to do a business deal. I said,
is this business deal worth you losing such and such amount? And he's like, losing? I was like, man, you just bought this. You've got closing costs.
Like you barely made your first payment.
Yeah, you've got closing costs on both sides and different things. And again, in his case, he's like, yeah, it's worth it for what I'm moving into. But yeah, again, side note, we keep getting on these.
Little tangents.
You need like 2 years at least. 2 to 3 years is way better to where you're in the black and it's actually starting to make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, but people don't know when they buy it, what's going to happen. And there's always that opportunity. And again, being so secluded, if you take a job with a big corporation, it's probably not going to be headquartered in Fairbanks or have that,
Which is a bummer because Fairbanks is a great place. Like I said, Fairbanks is a great place. It is a little secluded, but we've got great people here.
Yeah. No, you will not talk to a bigger fan. Well, you might, but I'm one of the top fans of Fairbanks.
Well, however, I was curious, how long have you been here? Because you said you moved from Arkansas.
Yeah.
Like,
so
how long
I
have you guys
was,
been here?
So I was actually born in Homer, Alaska, and
Okay.
I've kind of moved back and forth. So I have family in Alaska and Arkansas.
Okay.
So we moved every few years. And this is why the moving thing is a big deal for me.
Okay.
Because I've not military, but about every 3 years, the longest I had lived in a house, even still in one house, has probably been 3 years, 3 or 4 years. And that's part of being a real estate agent. I would sell my house a lot too in the same area.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyways, I graduated high school stuff in here. I've probably been here about 10 years, between like moving back and forth in Fairbanks.
Okay.
But getting that perspective, I love it here and I know what it takes to put roots and to build a community. For me, it's maybe not very natural. So building more and more community is so valuable.
Yeah.
The thought of moving, which I'm not saying people shouldn't move, but just know
It's daunting, though.
there is a setback period, whatever it is. For me, especially with real estate, where like I start at zero and I make $0 for at least 6 months.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
always kind of a thing. So anyways.
Goes back to financial readiness.
Yes. So
You've
being
gotta
able
have-
to do that is great, but going without money and these things and building the networks, I feel like every time we move, it's like a 2 to 5 year setback of like financial and even like personal connections. But when we came back up here, I was like, please don't make me move again for a long time. However, the community, this is like 100% feels like home for me now.
That's awesome.
Like it's just, there is, like you're saying, the community is something different here. I don't know what it is. And it may just be that I personally jive with the people here, but you like that? Jiggity jive. But you got to find that spot for yourself. And if you feel like, and I'm not saying that everyone should move, but if you feel like, God, I just can't connect to anybody, maybe sometimes it is a time for a move. But outdoorsy people and these, very self-sufficient, like there's a lot of that ingrained into our culture, like you're talking about.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I also think too, is that people not feeling connected, are they taking personal responsibility for not feeling connected? I had a conversation, it's probably been a month or so ago, with another community similar in size, military installation about 30 minutes down the road. And they wanted to know how you get people out of their house and come enjoy their community. And I'm like, well, are you helping them build community in your community? I'm like, military spouses know how to build community. They do it all the time because they make friends. Yes, we practice a lot.
Yeah.
We make friends fast, and we have to discern very quickly on if we trust this person. The running joke all the time is you knock on your neighbor's door and say, hey, can I put you down as an emergency contact for the kids' school? I just moved here. Because you literally don't know anybody.
yeah, it's tough.
But you have to discern very quickly, is that neighbor someone I can trust? Is the person I met in the commissary someone I can trust? And so then now you want me to come out into the community, and now you have to discern even more. Can I trust this community? Can I trust these people I'm meeting and all of these things? And so if someone doesn't feel that trust in the quick way that we're used to getting it, it can put off some signals that we're like, ooh.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I think trust in general has gone down generation to generation.
I would agree.
Yeah. So we're, my family, we're very, I would say, reserved. I hate to say like untrusting because that sounds like really negative.
But you're cautious.
We're very, very cautious. So was one of the big reasons for us living here was having family because we can trust them to watch our kids.
Right.
Whereas I can't imagine going to Europe and being stationed out there and like, okay, now we're going to have nobody watch our kids because we just don't trust them enough. And I'm not saying this is the right way to do it, but this is kind of probably what would happen to us. And I'm not military, where it's like, we just hardly trust our own family.
But I get it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you're, so it's like making relationships. So it can be very hard. Again, that whole community, like we're talking about, is things like childcare. And for us, it's a big part of it. It's like, if we want to go on a date night or something, what are we going to do with our kids?
Who watches our kids? Yeah.
Right. And then you hear these nightmare stories, which are, I think, probably less common than we want them to, I don't want them to be common, but you know what I mean? Like the way the news cycles work is they want everything to seem like it's happening every minute of the day.
Right.
But anyways, being able to, I've never thought about how quickly military people have to make new friends. I did think about that, but just trusting people for like emergency contacts. I never would have thought about that.
Right. Yeah. It's one of those things that.
Yeah. It doesn't occur to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny too. So you talk about not trusting people with your kids. So we're just going to keep bringing it back around to networking.
Yeah.
So social media is great. Right. But there's a difference in reading a review on social media, on Google, and then saying, oh man, this person, we connected at whatever event, and they were talking about childcare and some of the struggles they were having or some of the positives. And I'm like, man, I should reach out to them and say, hey, you were talking about this childcare provider. I am looking at that. What's your feedback?
Yeah.
And so building that network plays a huge role in a lot of parts of our lives because, like I said, Google reviews are great. That's all great. But to hear someone say it or to look at them and hear them give that review, totally different ballgame because you get the body language.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people think that networking is you either have it or you don't, or it's a very natural, spontaneous thing, which certainly there is spontaneity to it.
Oh, yeah. And
at least for me, I try to be as spontaneous as possible, but I have to structure things. So like, and my family listening, sorry, I have reminders to call every one of them because I don't love them enough not to remember to call them, but you know how fast a month goes by?
So fast.
Yeah. Because I have reminders. So
I'm
it
like,
comes up.
I thought we were in January.
Yeah, hey, time to call your mom. And it's like, I just called her. And it's like, oh no, I called her a month ago. So it can very easily, and everyone knows this. I hadn't talked to my dad in 6 months. And now it's a little bit awkward. And then people are
like, how do you not talk to your dad in 6 months?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, they're not in front of me.
Yeah. Yep. You are what you focus on. I've always said that. So, and not that you're not thinking about your parents all the time, but you're moving past your parents usually. For you young professionals, like you think less and less about your parents the further you go. I have this theory. Everyone is looking down generationally. I think about my kids all the time.
Same.
And I'm sure they think that way about me, which is great. And I think it's why old people get ignored, which really is sad.
It really is.
But they have no generation behind them that's looking down on them anymore. So if you're the oldest generation,
you are looking down.
Everyone's looking down. So yeah, the great grandkids have their great grandparents, their grandparents, their parents all like focusing. And the older you get, you have less people focusing on you.
Yeah, I've never thought of it that way.
True. Yeah, because I felt like the bomb.com, like everyone's like, oh, here's Blake. He's so awesome. He's 16 and doing his job or whatever. And and the older I get, it's like,
less people are saying that, right?
You're just a normal guy. Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Not near as cool as I thought I was. I was like, I'm the man. But anyways, that's just my theory. But who you don't focus on, you're not thinking about. But my parents are very important to me. My grandparents are very important to me. But I'm thinking about my job. I'm thinking what I'm doing with my kids and all this stuff. So if I don't plan for these things, and it's not always just setting reminders, but it like certainly could be. Like it totally helps me out.
Yeah.
And there's some awkwardness people feel like where they don't want to either calling is a weird one. Like I talk on the phone a lot and it's probably because of my profession, but like the younger generation, like even my wife does not like talking on the phone. Like it's a weird, like, I don't know. You
didn't want to look at her that time.
I know. You see how I kept like pretty intense eye contact with you. Yeah. It's tough not to. She's over there staring at me. So, but a lot of people are that way. They're like, I don't want to talk on the phone, So, I don't know. I think we should talk on the phone more often, to be honest, but just meeting up with people and just kind of planning for that.
It's funny, though. We have phones in our hands and we don't want to talk on the phone.
Texting is okay. I think there is still a disconnect with texting. You can be very thoughtful with texting, which is nice. Like if I want to say a nice message that I want to think about for 15 minutes or whatever.
I'm still going to include 10 emojis.
I don't even want to comment.
I might overuse my exclamation marks too.
I'm really good at that. I did one emoji one time with a client that Shelby says you cannot use that. Shelby's my wife, of course. It was the winking emoji because it's a little bit flirty. I didn't think about it until I'd sent it. Like, hey, we can take care of that for you.
Wink.
You know, it's like, what is he taking care of?
It's the unread red.
Yeah. So I've had to stop using emojis.
Also, by the way, talking about emojis real quick, did you know that there's a bearded lady emoji on Facebook?
That's
like
good to
from
know.
the desktop?
No.
I don't know if it's on my phone emoji ones.
It's got to be.
But I don't know.
They've got it all.
But I was messaging someone and I was putting an emoji in.
Yeah.
And I'm scrolling looking for one because I don't know what to call it. I know what it looks like. And I'm like, that's a bearded lady.
Yeah.
Did not know that exists. When did they update this?
I'm sure you'll find an application for it though.
You know what? Now that is like a mission. I'm going to have to. I'll have to text you and be like, found it.
Found it. Here we go. Here's what this is good for. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, but yeah. So anyways, networking, I think this has been the underlying conversation
Yeah, it
throughout.
really has, yeah.
And it's really an underlying thing throughout your whole life is who you know is really cultivates your life.
Yeah.
So there's no such thing as a self-made man. I was hearing a quote, like basically even the person who passed you by and said hello to you has had some kind of impact on where you're going in your life. And that could be a very minor impact, of course, or it could be a very major
It could change
impact.
the trajectory of your whole day.
Yeah. So surround yourself with the people that you want to be impacting your trajectory and look at having more of those. I think most people nowadays are not in a position where they're like, I just have too many friends. Like, I don't think that's happening or connections.
Well, and I wonder too, if people are afraid of I don't want to say afraid of networking. They're afraid of being taken advantage of. And so by not networking, they're not putting themselves in a spot that they might feel taken advantage of. And I'm like, take advantage of your network. That's why you have it.
I do think, I don't know if it's, I've thought about this. So I think there is a balancing book in some people's heads.
Yeah.
So if I come to you and I say, Lisa, I need somebody to help me get into Hollywood or whatever. Do you know anybody who's like, you know what? I do have this guy who is a, minor producer on some film, but he's got some connections. I say, hey, could you connect me up? If you were thinking of like very finite, you'd be like, I've only got so many times I can ask this guy for help. I'm not going to waste that on you.
Right.
That is when the connection stuff is like, no, that's not how it works. I think innately people most times, unless it's happening to them all the time, people like to help people out.
I think so.
Like if somebody asks me, especially in real estate, it happens a lot, like, who's an electrician or something you need, I'm not thinking like, darn it. I'm thinking like, oh yes, I get to help this person out. Or if something big happens, I've recommended books to people that have changed their life. And it's always like, I love that. And most people do. So never feel like you can't ask somebody for something. They can always say no. I guess just don't care.
Well, and I guess the thing too is
to.
Don't always go asking.
Okay.
Like, and I guess I say that is don't abuse the ask. If all you're doing is taking and never giving,
true.
Don't abuse the ask because then they will stop because that's all you're coming for.
Yes.
You're never giving back. You're never returning. You're only saying, well, what can you give me?
Yeah.
You're not saying, oh man, thanks so much for that connection or even just checking in, being like, hey, I really appreciate that connection. Is there anything I can do for you? And I'm not saying like it's a tit for tat.
No.
But don't just ask.
Yeah, don't be just a taker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
And spread the love. Because you might have one person who has a lot of connections. You probably have another person who has the same amount of connections and they might overlap, but it could be a whole nother ball game of who they're connected with that, could totally change it.
Yeah.
And honestly, ask multiple people.
Yeah.
Not just one. Ask 5.
Yeah, no, I've had issues where like, I don't know the answer to this, we'll just say business problem or whatever.
Okay.
One of my favorite things to do is like, I think of, okay, who's the 3 people that have the most expertise in this field? And just call them to talk like, hey, I'm running into this. Like, what are your thoughts on this? And again, most people, at least men, I think men like to talk a lot too. But
I'm surprised to hear that. Though.
Yeah.
I'm like, see, you're laughing. Yes.
Yeah. Their expertise, the thing that they're an expert in, like if somebody asks me about real estate, obviously it's my job, but I like to let them know how much I know in a way. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got a question? I do know this. And it makes me very happy to share that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think there is a lot of, again, people are concerned that people are going to be mad at them. Again, keeping balanced, always And you'll see always at the end of every podcast after the camera's off and stuff, I always ask people, hey, what can I do to help you guys?
Oh, yeah. I mean, one, you're helping me a lot anyways by having me on your show.
Right,
and then, so I've already thought about like, man, how do I repay Blake? Like,
it's very reciprocal, and it never should be like the outright goal. So it's this weird balance.
It's a business friendship, a business ship. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, what's the friendship in business, or like in these instances to where it's not like, oh, I'll get you coffee or I'll, something. But you always want to repay people because they treated you well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not because you feel like you owe them. Mm-hmm. It's because you want to repay them for their generosity and their kindness. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes
that could look different in a business aspect.
Yeah. And it's not always, I'm trying to think of the word, like where you're actively thinking about it. Like the law of reciprocity is like, if you can't outgive the world, is my opinion. Like if you give and you give and you give, so much will return to you. Yeah. That you can't just like, and that's always the goal. I've always kind of loved that idea. Yeah, you can't overgive. And like we've talked about employer and employee relationship. Mm-hmm. What's his name? Not Napoleon Hill. Think and Grow Rich. He wrote the book about, doesn't matter. A guy back in the day, this was like 1900s, a steel guy. Why can't I think of his name? He was very big on overpaying his employees. Oh, and he says, here's the issue with it. You cannot overpay your employee if you have the appropriate employee, the one who's trying to overwork your pay. So he had Charles Schwab was at the time had the biggest bonus, yearly bonus for his job ever. It was like $12 million. Again, 1900s. It was like a big deal.
Yeah.
And he says, here's the deal. He's worth more than that to me. And so next year I'm going to pay him more as long as this still continues. And he's going to outwork that money.
And then I'm going to pay him more.
Yeah. So he's like, I can't beat him. He can't beat me. But it's like a good competition, obviously. So he's making more and more money and he's paying more and more money to him. But the impact for his business, again, it's coming back to the employer.
It's the return on investment.
Exactly. So that is a mindset where it's like, hey, that guy I don't think should be looking for other jobs for one, unless it kind of stops. But you do have to have, again, the reciprocity of if you're just paying someone more and more and they're thinking, I can do less and less and this guy keeps paying me more. Obviously, that's not the case. You're gonna have to back it down. But if he thinks your worth is $100,000 a year, it's like, hey, I'm gonna give you 110 because I think you can outdo me on this. And then again, just that growing, and I think that works for everything, not just money. Where it's like I'm gonna give and give and give. You have to avoid vampires who suck it from you. But if you know it's someone who's working for, and you're not doing it just to get this back. That's where this weird balance is, where you're trying to like, hey, I want to give this to you because I know it's going to increase you, but I also know it's going to come back and increase me in whatever way, like friendship, money wise.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm very amped about networking.
I love that. And I think too, is that by you networking, you are amplifying yourself. Mm-hmm. So you talked about like give, and I'm like, well, I also need to be selfish. Mm-hmm. I'm doing this for me because I want to advance in this and I want to be able to brag about this. So it's not just a give. It's a me also. Mm-hmm. And again, it goes back to the balancing act.
Yeah.
If it's constantly me, well, no one's going to want to give you anything, and so it's really balancing those things because you don't want to be like, well, I want this and I need this. It's hey, I noticed that you work on this. Mm-hmm. I am interested in doing a related item. Mm-hmm. Can you mentor me? Can you help me?
I think it's a weird conversation. Like the selfish word and the giving for selfish reasons. Like people start to get really weird about it. Mm-hmm. But if we just back it out and say, why don't what we really want to do is we're just going to take it down to two people, although it can be way more than this. We have two things that are cohesive in some manner, and we can both benefit from it.
Yeah.
Why is there any negativity around that? Because some people are like, oh, yeah, why you're being selfish or this. I was like, everyone's selfish.
Everyone's selfish.
You have to have some life goals. Any life goal is selfish. It's like, you don't need that nice car. Like, but you want it? That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't buy it before you can afford it, but
100%.
Or whatever it is. But you have these life goals. And goals for yourself are selfish. Like you're trying to move yourself forward. But again, it's like, why not move yourself forward and your whole community comes with you? Like that's, 100%, I think that's the networking effect is like, we're all doing this together. We're not concentrating on again, tit for tat.
Yep.
You know, I don't have a notebook where it's like, I gave Lisa, you know, something good.
Right.
And I'm not going to do anything more for Lisa until she does something back for me.
And better.
You know, and better. You know, and a lot of times, again, professional relationships take care of it automatically. So I have many clients at the end of the deal, they buy me a gift. And it's like, that feels great for one, by the way, if anybody ever does that. Not that I love the gift, but the idea that they liked it so much that they got me a gift, you know?
Yeah, it was that they recognized the work that you did,
Right.
and they wanted to give you a tangible item,
Right,
to recognize that.
Well, here's the thing to back out. I already have the
gave them a tangible item.
Yeah,
right?
I gave them great service. They've already given me a tangible. They gave me a paycheck.
True.
So there's already like this mutual. But I do. So what it feels like to me is they're so thankful that they feel like the money wasn't even enough, which for
Right.
100% is people. I'm not saying get me
No,
gifts.
yeah,
You
I
know
totally
what
hear you.
It's like it to me. It's like, all right, I'm working for that. Where they're like, again, thank you so much for everything that you did. It's like you already thanked me. I got my commission check. Like that's
I can
how
pay my house payment this month.
Yeah,
Like,
so it's an instant thing. But
Yeah.
however, we both feel like we got the better. You know, he's like, oh, I
Right.
got this awesome real estate agent. That's me. And then me, I'm like, I got to feed my family because I got a
Right.
check, you know?
Yeah.
So, but again, everybody wins in that scenario. And that's always the goal is the win-win side of it because it's never, and it's not even a balancing. It's weird. There's like this separate entity where the 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4 anymore when you're working together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's something even better than 4 has come out.
Yeah.
Anyways.
No, I love it though
got me
too.
going.
I mean, and even networking can lead to a lot of things even in a professional setting beyond just talking to people who are your own age or working in your industry. I'm a firm believer in mentors. You know, so
Yeah.
I would hope that some of these conversations that people have at the Young Professionals Council half-day professional development summit, again, another mouthful, right? That they will take things back and they will talk to the people they've met, but then take it back to their network they already had. And like, man, I really want to learn more about insert whatever topic they picked from the day. And maybe that'll lead to someone who can sit down with them on a regular basis and teach them more about it.
Do you have, to pinch this one off, do you have and I know we've talked a lot and it's a very big subject.
Right.
If somebody who just like, I know nothing about networking, I want to become a better networker. I see the power in it. I see the power of being integrated into my community. Do you have a book or a resource that you would recommend? Like, hey, this is where I would start. This is to get you like, we've been talking big ideas, but like, here's the actual today to do things.
Oh, I don't know.
I'll give one.
Again, it's one of those things I've never thought of because I just do it.
Yeah. So you were opposite to me then, because it's something like when I have a small community, but I've had to be very thoughtful about how to grow that community.
Strategic, yeah.
Right, strategic. So one that I'm actually reading actively, so I hate to say it without finishing yet, but it's been so good, is Never Eat Alone. So if anybody wants that, it's all about...
See, I love eating alone because I don't want to have to talk to people sometimes. I will take myself to lunch all the time by myself.
I eat alone a lot, and I'm sure this guy does too. But the idea, of course, is integrating. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I've got to eat. I need somebody with me.
Right.
No, that's what I originally thought the concept was going to be like, hey, here's how to leverage your lunch to get more connections, which I'm sure that's going to be a conversation in the book, but it's really about here's how to leverage your connections for your life. And it's like, obviously going to golf or whatever is what people think about a lot, but a bunch of different ideas. So that was a really good one. But anyways.
But that's interesting though. I mean, even on just the premise of eating alone is I've honestly had great conversations with a waitress or waiter when I've eaten by myself. One, because I think they normally don't see a lot of people who eat by themselves. And I'm like, it's recharge time.
I gotta be honest, I do not like to eat at a restaurant alone.
Oh, I love it.
I feel so lonely.
I can look at whatever I want on my phone.
Yeah.
And essentially no one will talk to me because I look like I'm engulfed in my phone. That sounds awful, right?
Yeah.
But I know it's the signal generally that people are like, oh, she's being standoffish, But even in that same instance, I am not expected to keep a conversation going because I'm by myself. Who am I going to talk to? The chair in front of me? Like, no.
Right.
But then I have times where I used to frequent the same restaurant probably once a week, usually when we lived in Wichita Falls, Texas.
Hey.
And loved that place.
Yeah.
The waitress I had, We ended up becoming friends on Facebook, all these things. But we were able to just learn about each other and just have great conversations. And I've even noticed in other times I've been able to talk to waitresses or waiters and get some of those little tidbits and stories that I'm like, well, hey, did you know about? So it's continuing sharing information because I happened to sit by myself and they were like, well, how are you doing today? And just asking questions. And if I want to talk, which is 80% of the time, I will share and be honest.
Right.
Where there's other times that I'm like, just leave me alone. Just give me my food.
Yeah.
I would just want to sit in silence. But when I have answered those questions honestly or transparently, it's led to them opening up.
Yeah.
And them saying, well, man, yeah, me too, or whatever, or I'm looking for a new job. And I'm like, oh, well, did you know about blah, 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 and word vomit all the things to them.
Right.
And they're like, how do you know all these things? And I'm like, well, why do you think I'm eating lunch by myself? Because I need to recharge. So, all those things too. And again, it goes back to just knowing people and being willing to have conversations and listening.
Yeah.
I'd say listening is probably a big one because that's how you are going to learn what people need versus anticipating it. You're not mind reading.
Yeah.
I'm working on that personally. That I do want to anticipate people's needs. I don't want to say that I don't like that is not an important thing. But you can anticipate something and be way off base.
My dad used to me. Maybe he still would. I'm not living close to him. And I love my dad. Again, Dad, if you're listening. But we would get into arguments sometimes. And he would answer the question that he thought I was going to answer or ask 5 minutes from now. Because I would, what I mean? So I'm starting a line of questioning and I was like, can you just answer what I'm asking you here? Because I may have a different
Depending
direction
on how you answer this question might change the question.
He's like, well, I see where you're going with this. It's like, maybe you don't, maybe you do, maybe you do. Again, sorry, Dad, but it was always frustrating. And we're a good family of, I like to say discussing, but others may see it as arguing on a subject.
I know that.
Back and forth. So, but that's great. So in closing, I guess we'll say is my opinion is being connected in your community, having a great network of people that you enjoy talking with or being with for various reasons. They don't all have to be your best friends. It can be very much a professional relationship or whatever, a coworker, this or that, but enjoying the people that are around you and having good connections with them is going to make you happier. Yep. You're going to be way more integrated in the community, obviously, and you'll probably make more money by the end of the day.
You have a confidence boost.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Why are people, not to make this dark, but why are people depressed and suicidal? It's, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, I think it's a lot of times a total disconnection from everything around them, where they feel like they're no longer important to anybody or anything. And it's like, how sad would that be? And I've not lived this way, but I know a lot of people that are in a town that they know nobody. They have no family. And you think, well, they can find friends and stuff. It's like, yeah, that's true. That's true. But okay, I have to move a couch and it's just me here. Yeah. It's like, I've always had my brother or my dad or the father-in-law or something. It's like, we can always call somebody. And again, even if you're that person all alone, there's a way to make your community. You don't need that, but you can imagine how lonely that would feel. Where you're like nothing matters. Nobody cares if I'm here or not, and it can move into that really dark place. So on the opposite side of that, integrating more and more where, you have these parties or events or something where you feel energized afterwards. Yeah. And if you need something, somebody. Yep. It's so much more fun than having to, again, it's like shopping for me. I hate shopping, but if I know somebody who has information about that, I'll give them a call. This video and audio stuff. Oh, yeah. I didn't know anything. And so I have a friend that does a lot of it. And I called him and I was like, oh, thank God. I was watching 15 YouTube videos and it was a nightmare because there's 100 camera options and mics and this and
how do I pick one?
Yeah. He's like, here, get these things. I was like, oh, thank you. And it was so easy. So anyways, that's my thoughts.
No, 100% though too, because it is lonely, and like we talked about previously, that hello, just hi. And a smile at the same time, that could totally change someone's day. I mean, I've personally been working on telling people if I like their outfit or their makeup or something, instead of thinking it in my head or negative self-talk to myself, like, oh, I can never pull that off. I try to verbalize the positive and say, oh, I love your outfit today, or pink looks really good on you, or I love your makeup. And even with my daughter, my oldest, she's 5, she'll be like, Mom, why does she have green? on her face. And I'm like, well, that's called makeup.
Yeah.
And do you like it? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, tell them.
Yeah.
And so she'll be like, I like your makeup.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
That's
she's
cute.
so cute, and she's 5. And so really working on that, I think, is a big thing. And so really focusing on how you can change someone's day with the smallest thing, I think is a great starting point for networking, because you're thinking of the other person and then hoping you get the positive in return.
You get a positive. You don't need them to say anything back.
Nope.
It just feels good to be nice to people.
Yeah, exactly.
It always does. Yeah. So that's kind of maybe the real root of everything is just like being nice to people is really nice. Like it's fun. And most times it costs nothing. You're going to be standing in line anyway. So it doesn't even cost you time or whatever, you know.
You were already going to be there.
Yeah. You didn't say anything about my shirt though.
I love your plaid blue shirt.
Thank you. Thank you.
And the curly hair.
At all. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This one's been fun. It took a direction I didn't know, but I'm very passionate about, as you may be able to tell. So again, we're going to have all your stuff in the description as far as the Fairbanks Economic Development Young Professionals. I know we talked about events already.
Sent to you.
Yeah, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. Yeah. I copy and paste as my biggest friend. So yeah, I know trying to find them. The first few we were like having to hunt people down and like get their things. So anyways, now I've asked for that stuff ahead of time. But yeah, is there anything else that you'd like to add before you go?
Just register for the Young Professionals Council. Oh my gosh, I mixed the whole thing. The Young Professionals Council half-day professional development summit on April 19th.
Sweet. And this is going to come out on the 9th. So you'll have 10 days from when you're hearing this.
Well, then I will share it and say, go listen and then come see me.
Sweet. I love it.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Blake.
Bye. Hey there. Thank you so much for listening. If you want more content from AK Blake, you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, all under the handles AK Blake. Or if you want to listen to more podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts, it's there, Fairbanks year-round. You may or may not know, I am a local real estate agent here in Fairbanks with the Summit Realty Group. So if you like what I'm doing and you want to move to the area, you already live in the area, or you're looking to invest further into real estate in the area, you can reach me. Probably the best will be either my website, akblake.com, my email, blake@akblake.com, or my phone number is probably the fastest, 907-651-8356. You can call or text. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next one.